So this is a quick video on finding OE on your Monarch butterfly. I'll probably have a more extensive video on OE, but this is some quick tips. One thing that you can do, even if you don't have a microscope, is you can use one of those little stickers, put them on a slide or on a piece of glass, and if you peel the sticker off and there's this residue left, you can see that you definitely have an OE infected butterfly. This is the view under the naked eye. You should be able to see these lines, and if you look under the microscope, this is what it looks like. It basically looks like OE spores on the slide with no scales whatsoever, because the scales are still stuck to the Scotch tape. Even though the individual spore can't be seen by the naked eye, if you have a heavily infested butterfly, you should be able to see any residue left behind as being the spores. So here are some what it looks like under the microscope with different magnifications, and you can see they look like maybe coffee beans, maybe a description, or little footballs that have a hollow section to them. There's a method that you can use to identify your butterflies that have OE spores without requiring a microscope. This is one slide with many samples on it. I like to use these oval stickers because I hate to have to cut a piece of tape. These stickers are perforated in the center line, and they're used to seal boxes. It's easy just to grab one and to get your sample, and sometimes it's not so easy to get a sample, as you can see on this one. If you grab some of the wing as well as the abdomen, I rarely find any spores on the wings. It always has to be on the abdomen. Here's one sample here. Here's another type of sticker I was trying out, which is a little more opaque. It's smaller because these can kind of get a little too big for one butterfly, but it's not as transparent as I would have liked, but it still works pretty well. With the naked eye, just looking at these, it's kind of hard to tell which are infected and which are not. But if we look under the microscope, we can look to see what it looks like. And even though initially it looked clear, we can see now that we're getting into an area where it's kind of heavily infested. And in this particular sample, there is sort of a dramatic line between the infected part and the clear part. So this is a higher magnification view of what's happening with the white scales. You can see sometimes they're on top, sometimes they're underneath. And here's yet another level of magnification. Going back to this level of magnification, you can kind of see this line where down below it's fairly clear, and up above that line it's fairly infested. And I was just lucky to use this as an example, because now we can go back and look at that slide and we sort of see that line right here. We see the clear part and we see the infected part. This area had no spores, and then this area had the spores. You can, if initially when we looked at this picture it was hard to tell, but now that we look at this picture, since we know what we're looking for, we can see it easily. And we could probably see some here as well. and some here. There's another way you can take a look at these, and it's using this coin microscope. And you can kind of see, you will never see the oval football shaped, there's not enough magnification. But you will see sort of this dirty area where the white areas are. And this is that F letter shown here. You'll see sort of a dirty area in the white area, and this is that line we were talking about. And sometimes you can see better with this coin microscope because you can see a larger view, like that definite line. So here, these were good samples, so they look sort of snow white, if you will. There's no dirt on the white parts, and then there's just black scales nearby. And on this sample, it looked okay, really white here and everything, but you can see there was some spores way up here on this one sample. So I went back and double checked it under the microscope, and yes, there were some spores there. So finding the spores is not as easy as it may seem. Sometimes you probably have to check all 4 segments to make sure, because some segments may show nothing at all or very little, and the other segments may be completely contaminated. This is another option that you might be able to use to find the spores on your butterflies. This is just a picture, and I went back to look, and sure enough, there was very little, not very highly infested, but when we look at this GIF running through here, this little video, you can see momentarily in the upper right hand side when it goes over one of the samples that there are some spores way up here. We just went past it, and you can kind of see them right here. So, but it looked really clear in the main area here. So you have to be careful because everything else looks really clean. This is not a lot of infection for a butterfly, but it's still good to know if there is some as opposed to none. Hopefully that helps you in trying to determine whether your monarchs have the OE, and then I'll have a more detailed video on OE in the future.